I put up an agenda, but obviously open to anyone to add to it. I saw the main tasks in front of us: finalize milestone one. We're getting dangerously close. And then focused on any outstanding items for our event later this month. That's obviously very urgent. I've been working on it, so we're trying as quickly as possible to move that along. So I guess we can share a little bit about that, but also, I wanted to know from you guys, at least get some thoughts and insight on the agenda and things like that, just so it's not just sort of me deciding what to do, but to get your insight on how we want to structure that. So that's what I had. Should we just kick it off with milestone one release status?
Yeah, I can sort of share where we're up to. Let me share my screen. Okay, so can you see that?
Yep.
So I think it's pretty close. So what I did was the easiest way I could think of to do it, because the release build as opposed to the CI build is kind of a pretty totally different process, and it's quite difficult to automate. So I really just wanted to build it manually because I thought we're not going to be doing this that often. So I'll build it manually and put it somewhere and mix it in. So what I've done is I've kind of created this releases branch, which is just a totally different branch that has like the historical release content in it. And I'm altered our GitHub action to sort of mix this in with the CI build content and also the playground or extra content. So that's kind of what I did. And the TLS on this doesn't quite work perfectly yet. But the result is that if you go to the root, it redirects to the IG. And the IG builder actually handles the sort of what's the current version and all the historical versions. So you can see here that this sort of says this is the current published version. For a full list of available versions, see the directory of published versions. Then you click on this thing, which unfortunately is not styled the same as the rest of our IG, but that's sort of a bigger job, but it's kind of okay for now, I think. And you can see here that we have sort of two versions, the published version and the CI build version. And I'm just looking here right now, this is not right, because this should actually point to IG latest. So I might have to fix that. So IG latest should actually be the CI build. And then if you go to say 2, it'll say something different again. It'll say this is the current published version in its permanent home. So that's all that sort of standard functionality IG builder. So I've just kind of followed the instructions, run it in release mode and copied that all in there. So I think that's all fine, except I think this might have been a misconfiguration because really we want this to be now this new URL, because then it will update with our actions. And this all works as well, I think. So this is under this extra sort of bit. Only thing is that this is kind of not really formatted properly, so we might have to fix that. So this playground, I really like this, by the way, whoever put these links in. Tests and implementations. So from what I can see, there's kind of 3 things we need to fix here. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that this misconfiguration that I just noticed. And the third thing I think is this formatting on the extra content.
Yeah,
So I'm not sure why this is here.
Yeah,
actually.
because I think I fixed it a little bit, so it should look. Yeah, I will check. Maybe I forget to push it.
Or maybe it's like a problem of like relative paths and stuff, the way that I've set it up. So
I think I put like absolute path for images and all this stuff, but I will check it. Yeah, so.
Okay, so yeah, so I think we're pretty close on that. I'm pretty happy about it.
Yeah, it looks really good. And a lot of grunt work. So thank you for doing that, John and Nikolai.
Sorry,
Bashir, you have your hand
one
up?
question
Yep,
going
go ahead.
there. Thanks, John. What is the, so in the list of releases that you have, what's the FHIR version called?
So in it for a release, you can nominate the FHIR. Well, you have to nominate the FHIR version that relates to, and it's a bit weird for us actually because
we have a FHIR version field inside the view definition, right? So it's supposed to, like, I mean, you can have a view that works with multiple FHIR versions, or it's in general, it's kind of, agnostic about the FHIR version. I guess the only thing is maybe FHIR path, but again, I don't think that, this is actually tied to a FHIR version. I'm not sure. It's mostly tied to a FHIR path version, I guess.
Yeah, I think that some of that's a byproduct of the actual IG tooling, because underneath the IG tooling, like to define example resources, to define even like the definition of what is a logical model is in principle tied to a version of FHIR. So there is the version of FHIR the spec is built against, and then there's the version of FHIR that a specific view definition applies to, and those may not be the same version. And I don't think, yeah, but to John's point, I think we do have to tie it to some sort of FHIR version as what's the spec is built against, even though you can write a view definition that would support another version of FHIR that's distinct from this what it was built against. So that's a little bit of a source of confusion. And we could consider adding a snippet somewhere in the documentation to clarify that. But I think that's what's going on there.
interestingly, I just had a look at the FHIR one. They have a nominal FHIR version in the package list.json, which is the configuration, but they've managed to suppress the visibility of it somehow on their history thing. So maybe that's how we should do it as well.
Yeah, that makes sense. I have no idea how to do that, but yeah, if there's some way to suppress that, that makes sense to me as well. And while we're on the topic of versioning, are we calling this feed 2.0.0, or do we want to call it like 2.0.0, like RC1 or R2.0.0 M1 or something like that?
Well, there's kind of there's two bits to it. There's a version, which I kind of assumed would be a semantic version, which is compatible with what you're saying. And there's also a series in the configuration I've called R2. And the way the IG builder does it is it kind of groups multiple versions into series, and then they're kind of visually grouped within the history so that you can sort of see that, for example, all the 2 series would be part of R2.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's, I mean, if it's clear to focus on this thread, that's, yeah, I have no objections to that.
Yeah, I still have a like discussion, because I understand that we all like this multiple versions of FHIR and IGs. Do we really need this? So we not discuss this, because if we gonna be like backward compatible, do we really want to play this game like with the multiple versions of everything? Because I see the like hell and nightmare how people now supporting like multiple versions, updating documentation and all of these versions, like making some fixes and handling this. So unless we will make like first breaking change, don't you want to be like versionless? We can still like publish something, or we need like this, I don't know. So we can just state that like published version is 2.00, yes? And like if we start introducing new features, we can like say, okay, so this starting from this version, this starting from this version. I mean, because I'm still, so I see now we just talked with the Lithuanian guys. They are on FHIR 0.8 and they could not migrate. And that's complete disaster, yes. And I think if we agree to be backward compatible, maybe we don't need multiple version. What do you think? Or we want to pretend that we are like normal IG?
Yeah, we do. I mean, I think we would want, because like, I mean, because there's backwards compatible and then there's forwards compatible, and which one applies, it depends on your perspective. If you're authoring the guide or using the guide, I feel like we need versioning.
Yeah, I think there's kind of 2 issues there. One of them is we can't solve the FHIR ecosystem versioning system ourselves, and we kind of have to fit into it in some way, just kind of for sort of familiarity and intuition of using an IG, I think. But the other thing is, like, I'm not sure, like, I think, yes, we can have sort of an intent of sort of total sort of compatibility going forwards, but I'm not sure that that's absolute. Like we can't really say that there will never be a backwards incompatible change, and we still want a mechanism if we were to make, say, another sort of series of these specifications for some unforeseen reason. So I think as long as we have our spec, you know, like a home for it, and it shows people basically this latest, and we communicate those expectations and everything, I think it's pretty much fine. I think there's all sorts of implications to kind of breaking the versioning thing. Like, you know, we need versioning for like FHIR packages and for people to consume this thing. And also if they want to point to what they support, they may want something stable that's not something that's going to move out from under where the URL that they've pointed to. So I agree, but yeah, I kind of feel like we still need to color in the lines to some extent of sort of FHIR IG conventions. Unfortunately, I disagree with your statement that we all love. I totally agree that that FHIR versioning is a bit of a problem area.
Actually, sorry, I need to drop in a few minutes very soon, but and I think we have discussed this. Sorry if we made a decision, but now that I'm thinking about it, so we have FHIR version. I mean, we have the view definition version. That's one thing. We have the FHIR version, which is inside the view definition, and then we have the FHIR path version. So the way that we have done it is that, you know, based on FHIR version, we decide on the FHIR path version. But is this actually specified anywhere in the spec? Like, I mean, because it seems to me that, you know, those two can be independent, like, you know, FHIR version and FHIR path version, or no, they are tied together.
I think yes.
They are independent. Then do we need to have, I mean,
But essentially the FHIR depends on FHIR pass version. So I
So I
can
guess the
imagine
point
that
is,
like newest FHIR pass version may work with old FHIR versions, but inside FHIR for checks for invariance, I think FHIR refers, and for search parameters, it refers specific FHIR pass version, but it doesn't change too often.
yeah, all I'm thinking is that, you know, do we need to have like a FHIR path version or no? I guess that's the question.
Probably. I think you're right that we have sort of referred to the version agnostic URLs when in fact perhaps we mean N1. But as Nikolai said, there's a little bit of nuance to that in that we may touch on some FHIR semantics. But the core FHIR path spec is FHIR version agnostic, right? However, it itself also has versions, and that's why we kind of join and low boundary, high boundary can be found in like the edge or whatever. But I think we've sort of neatly skirted that issue up until now. And as Nikolai said, it's probably not really in practice a huge issue because I think FHIR path hasn't introduced any breaking changes, probably. Or it's only got one normative release anyway. But yeah, I can imagine there would be a problem if they, for example, released an N2 which had breaking changes and we haven't actually specified which we're pointing to.
Yeah.
I mean,
so like at least for us as a culture or as a practice, try to keep like this versionless spec, like moving it forward, understanding that here we like introducing new feature, right? This feature is introduced from this, like having some kind of matrix.
Okay. So for example, if you were going to add like a new element to the view definition,
yeah,
how would that work? So would it sort of be labeled as being since a certain version, or
yeah, we can label every like element paragraph like a header with the version since this element was introduced. Yeah, or if like extra feature or behavior introduced, like as well have a notes when it starts. The same for deprecation, yes. So because we can deprecate something, so we can write that this feature is deprecated since this version. Don't use it. And
but Nikolai, referring to the version of SQL and FHIR, not to
Mhm.
FHIR or an external version.
Yeah,
Those
yeah,
are-
I'm
those are
talking
different
about
issues.
like SQL
Okay.
and FHIR version. Yeah. And in JSON schema, they did quite nice. So they have a test scripts, yesterday's test JSONs, and they just split into folders like V2, V4, V3, V6, and like the latest one.
Yeah, I think that's probably not controversial, right? If we, as the spec moves along, document from where new or changed or deprecated features, like in what like the history, kind of internalized history or
Yeah.
externalized history. I think that's probably non-controversial to everyone, but raise your hand if it doesn't make sense.
So I'm just thinking, like, if we added a new feature to the view definition, which sort of modified the result somehow, like, I don't know, trying to think of a good example, say some sort of new type of filter, and that was only from like version 2.1. So a view runner that supported that would pick it up and recognize it and apply it. A runner that didn't support it would not know what it was and would just ignore it. And then you would have two different results. Do you then sort of have to say, okay, well, I support, or this view needs a runner of a certain version or later, or how would that all work?
Yeah, I think something like this. Yeah.
So you kind of have to declare in a view definition, like what the requirements are.
Yeah.
From a versioning perspective.
Yeah. It will start when we start adding new features. Yeah, let's say like 2.1. We're adding the new, I don't know, new keyword. So then this view definition, you may say that, yeah, I need this engine which like support 2.1 or higher. If we backward compatible, so that should be enough, like 2.1 or higher.
Yeah, the other thing that I really struggle with FHIR versioning is that like a resource is not kind of self-describing in that way. So if I just got a view definition, there's nothing to tell me what version it's from, what version of FHIR, what version of anything. It's just like kind of in isolation. But okay, well, I think I'm okay with that as kind of a broad intent, and maybe we just have to figure out the details of that if and when we want to introduce one of these sort of breaking changes, or not breaking changes, like a sort of significant functional change.
Yeah, any change. Yeah, so when we.
All right.
Yeah, beyond sort of just like documentation and sort of that sort of thing.
Right. Well, I mean, we can, document this discussion and, save it for that future date. I think is the appropriate way forward. All right. Anything else on milestone 1 release? So one thing I had, we didn't talk about the QA issues, but just briefly for folks, I'm still working on the release announcement. It shouldn't be anything super special, but that's something that I think we should work on. Do you guys have any thoughts on that, or potential places we can advertise it?
No, I think it's just kind of as long as we've got all the publishing sorted out, and it's really just getting it out there as much as we can. And I think we've kind of got a shared responsibility to do that. Yeah, and obviously, like, we can use the upcoming mini conference to get it out there as well.
Yep, for sure. Their streams are crossing. So, well, I'm going to show you some stuff about that, but I'll continue to work on that. I've had like some early, just a draft or two, but I'll clean it up and finish it off. I'll put it on in a Google Doc, shared around so people can take a look at it. Probably shouldn't be anything too surprising for folks. So that's one step. The other one was the QA issues. I think I kind of lost thread since last week. Any updates on that? I know obviously Bashir was looking at that. You were looking at that. I think both of you were looking at that.
So, yeah, I had a look at it. I'm going to put it out there that I don't feel as though there are any significant errors that should block our publication. I mean, others can have a look at the QHTML and tell me what you think, but I think one of them is as far as we can tell, a bug in the IG publisher. And another one is like, so we use the resource type value set, and it said, oh, you used an experimental value set in something that's not experimental. I'm like, really? That's experimental? And I went and checked it, and it is experimental. So in the core FHIR spec, the resource types value set is marked as experimental. Go figure. So I don't really know what to do with that. And I'm thinking that's not really fixable, at least not by me. I'm not sure how to fix that.
Okay. I mean, I think considering this is milestone 1, we've like spent enough time on the QA issues. It's not, in my view, a blocker on anything, right? It would only be a blocker on some kind of formalizing of the process, which is not, we have nothing planned in that domain, anything specific planned at this stage. So for me, I think I'm fine with whatever is in the QA page right now. If you guys are all good there. I don't know, Nikolai, if you've taken a look at it at all, but yeah, that's my take.
Yeah, I'm agree.
All right, so we'll just check that one off. Anything else? Let me go back here. QA,
Start
publishing.
marketing analytics on FHIR, yes, so because it's time is
Yep.
so
Yep, that's what I want to transition to. So I don't know if you guys have seen it. Well, you've seen it. I don't think you've seen it, John, or Fatima and Adam, but you can go to FHIRanalytics.org right now. Let's see what that looks like.
So is that via -analytics?
No,
Would you
one
mind
word.
posting a link? Oh,
Yeah.
one. So I get secure connection failed.
Oh, no.
Is this a plain HTTP thing?
It works for
Cool.
me, so I can open it.
Your
No.
redirect too.
Do we have a limit on how many people we can have?
I think it depends on the webinar account that we use. I think, John, do you know Adam?
I've
Sure,
met a
we've
few
met.
of you. So John, Adam, nice to meet you. Nikolai, I think we've crossed paths in the past. So, and I hope to make it to Portugal in November, but it's still TBD. So,
okay.
Yeah, Adam and I have been getting connected the past, couple of months. Definitely, great background in FHIR and all this stuff, and then a lot of strong interest in what we're doing in FHIR analytics and SQL and FHIR. So I said, come and join our weekly call, and just start getting connected to what we're doing. So yep, that's the conference page, October 30th. You can check it out. Now that the SQL and FHIR spec site is up, we can add those links into here. Right now, they're just highlighted. I think it looks pretty good. I think it looks great. In fact, so hands off to the Health Samurai guys working on it. It has a list of all the sessions, all of the content there. Registration page, I'm assuming is working. You guys should be checking on that on the back end. And so that's that. We're ready. I think that part is ready. What's on my mind outstanding is, the actual content, event content. So I wanted to talk to you guys about that. Similarly, we'll need like announcements of these things. I'll maybe put up a couple of draft ones. Actually, Adam has done a bunch of conference work too. So I've been asking him, sort of experience and best practices. So he's been really helpful thinking about some of that stuff. So really it's about, I think, locking down content for everybody and just how the agenda will roll out. So just, it'd be great to have a discussion with you guys about that. Firstly and foremostly, like how long, right? Like how long should these sessions be? I have the way I've sketched it, and it's in the analytics conference Google Sheet, which I'll share now. I'll share again in the chat. So this is where I've just been sketching out and organizing the content. But if you look at the agenda, there's a total draft. So some people might actually have preferences if they want to go earlier in the day or later in the day. I'm looking at you, John. So, I think I'll do an intro session, but I think that should be quite short and we should just get into the meat of the content right away. So like 15 minutes sounds good. People can like hold their questions. It doesn't have to be this long, beginning. You want to kick off the day, relatively quickly. But then for the specific, like we have, how many do we have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 sessions. What do you guys think of the duration of those sessions?
I can imagine people who will try to listen all of these talks.
Mhm.
So I would love to keep like good temp, maybe 20 minutes per speaker, 5 minutes for questions, 2 session, then break, like split into 3 parts. Well, that's my opinion, because if we will spend by hour for each speaker, yes, so nobody will be able to sit down till the end.
I might want a little bit more time, but they really should be, relatively brief, considering the number that are there. And then I think we should have a like a wrap up roundtable at the end, right? Like a panel roundtable at the end. So that's the structure I was thinking of generally, was introduction by me, relatively short, maybe 15 minutes, a set of these sessions, maybe with a break in the middle for lunch. I don't even know. Like it should just be continuous, because like we'd probably lose a lot of folks at lunchtime. Like, so continuous through the the sessions, and then a wrap up panel where we talk about like bigger picture issues, future looking, that sort of thing. How does
Yeah,
that flow?
what's good about talks, because all of them gonna be about SQL on FHIR, so speakers should not like start from scratch. Yeah.
Mhm.
So if you like couple first talks will introduce what is SQL on FHIR, so the rest of speakers can focus on the specific like unique parts of the talk.
Yeah.
Instead of like refreshing what is view definition and so on and so on.
Right. What are your thoughts, John?
So is that what you're going to do, Arjun? Are you doing the intro to SQL on FHIR bit?
Yeah, but that'll be like a high level, just like about the where the standard comes from, what the impetus is, what some of the prior approaches were, that kind of thing. I think a lot like what I did with the Connectathon previously, like similar to that, like table setting conversation, but not going into any of the detail. Just like maybe showing the view definition on the screen, saying like, we're going to talk a lot about this thing, and then the next speakers will go into the technical depth. There won't be a technical conversation.
Yeah, but then ideally after you, we should have like technical introduction talk. Yes, so
Okay.
which will like tell what is view definition, how it works. So then the rest people should like rest speakers should not like do it again and again.
Right.
Who is gonna be that guy? I don't know.
Well, I have you a second in the agenda, Nikolai.
I'm second, yeah, because I want. So my idea was to focus on like on transpiling to SQL, so like a little bit more hardcore stuff.
Okay.
So, I don't know if we have like some introductory talk. So if we don't have, so let's make it. And
Okay.
I'd be happy to do something, because I've already got a presentation that I've done around this for intro to SQL on FHIR that I can share with you. You can tell me if it's kind of suitable. I could just kind of represent that towards the start and then do some more specific stuff later on. Or it doesn't need to be me presenting it, but I can send it to you.
I don't know. Do we have Ryan presenting?
We don't. That was usually Ryan's role, but we don't have Ryan this
But
time.
Ryan said he couldn't do this, so we can like have Ryan as a second talk with a intro, technical intro.
I mean, I'll ask Ryan if he wants
Yeah,
to.
let's ask. I don't know why Ryan ignored this, even maybe. Yeah. Because I think that this is good because he wrote like the most of the spec, yeah. So
right.
He will did, but if not, then we can fall back to John. Yeah.
Okay.
I would love to see the Ryan at least like between the speakers. Yeah. So let's try to do this.
Okay.
Yeah,
So I'm gonna do. I'll still say. So this is good. Tech intro, and I'll ask Ryan, even though that could be you, John. And then like we also want to have another, I mean, we want to still have a session on pathling, right? So I don't know if you want to go into like have a combined session where it's intro and then pathling, or how does that, what's your feeling there? Do you ambivalent about that?
Yeah, it could be like that, I think. John, what do you think? Like 2 talks. So we will give you
well, let's see if we can get Ryan first.
Yeah.
And if we can't, I've got kind of 2 presentations anyway. I don't really mind. We can put them together Yeah, let's see if we can get Ryan, and then if not, then yeah, I could probably put it together into one presentation if you want, if that makes it easier.
Oh, it could be
Yeah,
like,
let's.
but like going one by one, so you don't have to like waiting for the next.
Yeah, because it probably will be kind of late at night, won't it?
And we probably need a call with the speakers to discuss that, so people don't have to put, when we decide who will do technical intro, so we may have a call with the speakers to discuss that they don't have to do like this introductory stuff in the talks, and keep them smaller, but like more focused.
I was planning on doing that, kind of like a speaker guidelines
Mhm.
kind of thing. So that, I mean, that's one part of speaker guidelines is, you don't have to, don't have to redo the basics. And the other parts I was thinking was, definitely focusing on not just the like the implementations, because these are almost all implementers, but not just implementations, that's important, but also, the use cases people were thinking about when they were developing their implementations or use cases they've seen, sort of architectural ideas. Obviously, Nikolai, you go into that a bunch. Same with you, John, but, bring in not just the like, oh, well, I did this implementation in, a language I really like or something. Like these were the driving use cases and architectural ideas I had in mind. And then, future directions sort of thing. So I can put together like some speaker guidelines. We can put together a call with all of the speakers if you agree to those guidelines. Are there any other guidance for speakers that you guys can think of?
No, I think I think it's a good idea to have a call before the conference with the speakers, just to get on the same page for sure.
At least we can like share like the plans, so yeah, to understand who is gonna talk about what. Maybe slightly change the order, or like put people together who will talk similar stuff.
That way you don't have 8 people giving an introduction to the problem.
Yeah, yeah.
But it would be good if you kind of bucket the problem, how it works, and then like applications, and then kind of future directions, I think.
Yeah, that's like the activity that we're doing right now. So that's good. I'm trying to think if the other thing is happy to have folks give mock presentations, or if folks want some guidance on their session or their decks or anything like that, happy to be available for that as well. So that's a kind of an offer for everybody. That might be useful to some folks who haven't done this a couple of times before with the same content. So that was one idea I had. Yeah, some folks might want some help on their presentations. And then if you look at there's a to-do section. We can get a Zoom webinar account to Adam's question. I think that's 500 attendees for relatively cheaply. So I can go ahead and add that to our accounts, or my account anyway.
We have like both this stuff for Health Samurai, so we can do this through Health Samurai Zoom link. Or we can ask Diego about HL7.
That goes back into all that like FHIR Foundation stuff. Like I'm happy to just purchase like a 1 month thing and just keep it sort of clean, so we'll have it. And then going forward, as that FHIR Foundation conversation progresses, like it's not a big expense. So I thought I'd just do that, so it's vendor neutral, HL7 neutral right now. Can recompensate.
I was thinking you're talking about this like conference stuff, but you're talking just about like for these meetings, like weekly. For the conference, so it only once, so we can use like Health Samurai or HL7. I don't think it's a problem, but for the future, like for the working group meetings, yeah, we will definitely have to like donate and buy from FHIR Foundation organization.
Okay, we'll see. Yeah, I think I want to see how that conversation progresses, because we haven't heard anything since we've talked the last time. So I'm agnostic about that until we hear more, because we haven't heard back for next steps there. Just for context, John, I don't know if you missed it, but we've been talking with Graham about the FHIR Foundation process. So it's moved a little bit, but it hasn't moved forward beyond this stage. So we want to see if, I think long term it's going to happen for sure. I don't know if it'll happen in a short enough time period to for the conference itself. So I think that's the only issue right now.
Fire Foundation is interesting topic. I think we should help Graham to shape Fire Foundation because it's still like more idea than thing. So and probably our group could be like first serious group in Fire Foundation.
Well, yeah. So you mean FHIR community process, right? Because my understanding is FHIR.
It is not only
Foundation is kind of
Don't
like
mean fire community trust. That's
it is
maybe Fire
more. It
Foundation.
is little bit more. Yeah. So the idea that we will have like organization behind our working group, which we can.
the thing is that
yeah, and they will watch
the
us.
thing is, yeah, okay, yes.
Supervise and so on.
No,
so
the problem that I've had with this is that you ask Graham and you get one answer, you ask someone else, then you get another answer, and nobody seems to be on the same page about what all the different concepts floating around are. And, you know, like there's kind of this FHIR community process thing that kind of sounds like it should be sort of the thing, but nobody's been actually run through it at an international level. And yeah, it's all very confusing to me. But let me know when you work it all out.
That's on me. Actually, I'm optimistic, John. I think we've come full circle here. But you know, Nikolai and I had a chat with Graham last week, and it really does seem like Fire Foundation is the right vehicle with the right ethos, kind of like Apache, right? Like more Apache than ANZ, right? Or ISO.
the Linux Foundation. Yeah, that's what we discussed with Graham. But it looks like Graham just have an intuition and like just the first steps, but the idea is not yet finalized. Yeah, so we discussed that it should be like Linux Foundation or Apache. So they can cover the legal questions for the group. Yes, provide like vendor neutral host for all these activities. We can buy and donate some, I don't know, assets like Zoom accounts, like GitHub, blah blah blah. So whatever we need, yes. Like probably I don't start like YouTube channel instead of like using Health Samurai. So like make it vendor neutral, providing like supervising legal advices and all this stuff. And that sounds the right thing because if we want to like different companies working in the same working group, so we need something like this. And HL7 probably too heavy, so the Fire Foundation may look like the right stuff, and it can host like physical projects and so on, like not implementations, not only like specs.
I think we need like a vehicle for the IP. We kind of need like a light touch template for the governance. That's something short of the full HL7 thing. And like some basic infrastructure just to let us get on with it.
I completely agree. And I think an angle that I find interesting is as a funding vehicle, right? As a vehicle for folks who may be interested in funding this work, but not going to a specific person or vendor. They could sort of they could donate funds to the Fire Foundation that was earmarked, right, for this kind of project. I don't see how otherwise you could do something like that. So I may add that to my intro discussions, like this work, right? Like here's where to send us money that we can then distribute, right? Like I think that would be a really big win.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. Okay.
And it is quite serious questions. Yes, so I participated in a few groups, and when like a bunch of assets are bought by different companies, so when the company like people like leaving companies, the companies like not interested, then you have a lot of issues. Yes, so for example, I don't know who I should give this domain SQL on fire.org. Yes, so for now it's in Health Samurai, but whatever could happen with the Health Samurai or with me. Yes,
so I'm optimistic. Again, I don't think this is a blocker. We'll continue to move forward with that with Graham. So, hopefully something will happen before the event. If not, we have, 7 sessions at least. And so they are going to have to be shortened. No lunch break. We'll just go straight through the day. Is that general sounding okay? Or how does that sound to folks?
I would have a small lunch break, but that's just me.
Yeah, we can block by 2 talks and make like 15 minutes break between.
Okay. Let me play around with a couple of agendas and just see how they feel. I'll present it to the sort of speakers group. We'll do it all asynchronously. Don't have to wait for our next meeting to chat about it. So let me work on that a little bit, and then I'll start to share that material.
Yeah, let's start promotion. Yeah, so let's start with some posts on LinkedIn and
Yeah, that is the thing we need to start for sure.
Otherwise,
Like,
it could be a little bit late. Yeah, because we only have like 20 days to market this event.
So from the Health Samurai side, right?
Mhm.
So that's the thing we really need is a LinkedIn posts for folks and to reach out to influencers. Like that is the thing that's actually super urgent. So are you guys just on the Health Samurai side, just ready to go? Just
Yeah.
content?
I think I will talk with the guys tomorrow, and let's start from tomorrow. They will ping all the speakers and like prepare the posts and images, all the stuff.
Okay, awesome. And have, we've obviously been working together, but have them loop me into any of that. I'll do the same thing from my side as well. And so we'll have sort of we can have multiple versions, so to speak, of these things as well.
Yeah.
All right, great. Any other things about the event? Some minor stuff. Yeah, let's reach out to the speakers. The only question mark really is about Diego because he is traveling back from Asia. And so I was kind of not sure if he'll be able to make it, but I think the only I can sort of MC between speakers and anything like that. That's not a problem. And so maybe I'll be kind of a backup to Diego if he's not able to make it. So I think there's just a couple of questions like that, and that's it. Any other thoughts about the conference?
No, just when I went to it, I got a blocked by cybersecurity message from newly registered domain. So I'll send them a ticket today and get it unblocked for me and others. And I can see it on my phone though.
It's too fresh, too hot.
Yeah.
I think I fixed DNS for SQLonfire.org.
Awesome.
All right, so I will be in touch.
Yep. Yeah.
All right.
Thanks everybody. Have a good week.
Thank you. Bye.